Hey guys, so I have a question. Are battle royales competitive? I think it's an interesting question, especially with the idea of esports and how new it is and emerging it is as a medium of competition, and with professional players, major brands, grand stages, the money. Esports for the past couple decades have been pretty exciting and the future is looking very promising. But with new games coming into the market and people asking whether or not they're going to have a huge competitive scene all the way down to the privately hosted tournaments, do battle royales not only have a chance, but do they belong or even be considered as competitive games? So in this video, I want to explore what could be defined as a competitive game or esport, what games would need in order to be competitive, and what aspects of games could affect whether or not they would be a good competitive game to not only play, but to watch. When you think of the word competitive, what's the first thing that comes to mind? Maybe football, or basketball, chess, the job market, and even within the last 20 years or so, video games. But what defines competition? Is it something as simple as doing something, an activity, whatever it is, and trying to be better than one person or multiple people? Video games can be competitive, from top-tier esports down to speedrunning competitions, where there is no competitive feature of the game, but we gamers make it competitive by being faster than another at completing the game under certain rules. Speedrunning has categories, in which the player adheres to them in order to qualify, which makes sense. Games have rules. Rules define how a game is played, otherwise there's virtually no way of telling who's doing better in the given activity. If you look at a game like Counter-Strike or Valorant, both teams have 5 teammates with objectives to kill the enemy team or plant and defuse the bomb. With those parameters, the game still has rules, like gravity and physics, abilities and their cooldowns, weapons and their strengths and weaknesses. These rules establish an atmosphere of fairness, a sort of balanced state in which gamers feel like what they're playing is exactly that, fair. Maybe some weapons need a buff or a nerf, or a character's abilities need a buff or a nerf, or reworks, or whatever needs to happen. Game balance is a balancing act gamers and developers play in order to preserve its competitive integrity. And the same logic applies to other genres, RTSs, MOBAs, fighting games, and even speedrunning. But do they apply to battle royale games? I thought about this for a while if BRs are true competitions or games designed for the entertainment and the quick joy they provide for short periods of time. Don't get me wrong, battle royales provide entertainment. It's a genre that's produced billions of dollars for developers, provided great content for content creators and their communities, but they nonetheless feel like they lack something tangible and worthwhile. I've kinda equated battle royale games like arcade games. You go down to the mall, get on a machine, spend a bunch of quarters trying to get a high score and show off to your friends, and then maybe your friends come back another day to try to beat your score. There is competition there to beat your friends, but is that all? Let's dissect this a little bit more. Let's look at a game like Valorant. I would use CSGO, which has a little bit more of an established esport, but I have less experience playing it, and Valorant's not too far off how CSGO operates. So, 5v5 team-based competition where the parameters are always static and with no variable other than the team composition and the map played on. But after enough playtime, those variables get less and less significant in the impactfulness of the game. From the get-go, strategies can emerge where teammates converge on certain plans of action to attack a certain point in a certain way at a certain time for a best-case scenario. That may also not happen because the enemy team can operate in the same way, which in effect could act as another random variable and introduce the skill of improvisation. Gameplay boils down to skill of aim, preparation, map awareness, and other factors that everyone can have equally or not, depending on the experience of the gamer. One could make the leap in logic that a team who has more experience over the other team in FPS games and in a game of Valorant, that they could outperform the team in multiple metrics, including wins on a consistent basis, thus showcasing skill gap, skill disparity, and the idea of professionals versus amateurs. And this is even evident in physical sports: baseball, basketball, football, take your pick. A men's professional basketball team would stomp a team in high school based simply on experience, and they would do it consistently with barely any deviation in metrics. This simply makes sense because of rules that are strict and that must be followed to not only make sense, but to be fair. How different would the basketball game go if the high schooler's basket was lower? Maybe a 3-point shot could be a 5-point shot. Perhaps every time a basket was made, the ball wouldn't go to the other team, but instead a 50-50 coin toss determines who gets the ball next. Maybe even team members would swap teams on a foul, or other mechanics. These changes in the game aren't meant to make the game fair at all, but they offer variety in how the game gets played. One game would not be the same as the next game, or the game after that, or even 100 games down the line. With enough variation, the game would not even be recognizable from season to season, and it wouldn't make sense to consider it a competition between teams. It would, however, make it a competition between players. Battle Royales are all about this variation in more ways than one. Some Battle Royales do this more than others, but all BRs are capable of adding new things to spice up the game. First, let's talk about the rules. Battle Royales are won simply by being the last one alive or the last team alive, and there's many ways to go about getting to that goal. It's extremely difficult to contextualize it. For most Battle Royales, there's a massive map where you pick where you want to go. Some games change this map over seasons, and others stay the same with slight occasional updates to locations. If you were to compare this to League of Legends or Counter-Strike or any other competitive game, this is taking the map variable and putting it into the meat grinder. No game is going to be the same, even if you land at the same point of interest, because the variable of other players changes where you land and how you go from there. After getting through the landing portion of a BR, loot locations may be variable or not, and the guns present for the most part change every game. Bringing back the point made before about Valorant, where team comps and map variation become less of a factor the more you play, the same logic can apply to BRs. However, the time needed to play to get to that point is so much more than in other games, requiring hundreds if not thousands of hours to reach that state. Soon after landing and finding weapons, players will start to engage with other players who may have more experience or less experience than you. There's really no way to know nor a way to combat this competitive rule break. Back to basketball, imagine a series of games in high school or even college level playing multiple games in a season against each other, but there's also a couple of professional NBA teams in the mix. What are the chances the pros will win more games than the quote-unquote less experienced teams, if not the championship in its entirety? Finally, in the mix in most BRs is the way the map gets smaller and smaller to corral the players to a point on the map in order to get down to the finalists of the game. The position of the final point is always up to the game to narrow down. It's perhaps here, after 90% of the match, does it get toward more of a duel of the fates between a handful of players. I guess here you could look at it as a couple of players, after a while of killing, evading, and looting, they become a character that is either underpowered or overpowered or on par with their opponents, which could infringe on the rule of balance and fairness. Like I said, one game could be extremely different than another because the RNG of Battle Royales could affect a vast amount of variables. But with enough experience in the BR of choice, those spikes of RNG could be smoothed out over time. And so how does this also tie into games like Fall Guys or even Tetris 99? The idea present in, say, Fortnite and Warzone don't exist in Fall Guys or Tetris, but can they be competitive? Their answer is yes, to a point. Fall Guys can introduce tweaks in new game modes as opposed to Fortnite changing the map, but variation exists still, enough to keep the experienced players in the same game with the non-experienced, and perhaps like every other battle royale, will from time to time feature players with loads of experience losing to people with considerably less, the final point in battle royale variation. True competition can't have RNG affect a more experienced player losing to less experienced players, because a single mistake is the difference between winning and losing. An NBA team can miss a basket here and there all game against a high school team, and probably still win. An MLB team could make plenty of errors and strike out a few times. Doesn't mean a high school team's gonna have a chance at a 90-mile-an-hour fastball. And a high school football team will just get killed in the NFL. The margin for error in Battle Royale is considerably smaller than other games. We've seen the clips of big-time streamers and content creators losing out because of mistakes or the inconsistency of RNG, because it's difficult to get a foothold, to get to a point of comfort reliable enough to win out every time. This is more prominent in solos than it is in squad modes for Battle Royales, but not by much. Alright, so let's sum some stuff up a bit. Early on I made points about what a good competitive game needs in order to be competitive based on what games and sports we play now that are competitive and have established the world of competition. Games need an atmosphere of rules, fairness, and balance. There needs to be rules to maintain a consistent game from the first to the next couple hundred down the road. There needs to be a relatively strict disparity of skill to maintain fairness, and there needs to be a never-ending battle from the players and the devs on the discussion of balance. Now, with those qualifications, do battle royales fit? And I would say kinda. The rules of battle royales change throughout the game when talking about the zone of the circle changing game to game, and there's no consistent need to do anything other than survive. Gear, kills, getting to points of interest, nothing really matters. It makes the game seem more of a sandbox of gameplay and world exploration rather than you being there in the game to perform a specific job or need and be the best at it. Back to the arcade example, getting kills could be what it means to be better, but you also have to be really lucky, more than skilled, to get those kills instead of someone else getting them before you. Fairness implies everyone is on the same level playing field regardless of skill, because skill comes from the player and not the game. BRs have gear all over the map and in chests and whatnot, but inconsistently reward players gear that could be helpful at times where they need it, or give great gear that may not appear for everyone else. Warzone curves this problem a bit with drops where the player can get a loadout pre-made as to not rely on the loot in-game, but not all the time. Depending on the BR, a gun or ability a player has or lacks makes it extremely unfair, and puts it more in the hands of RNG than a skillful player. Balance is everything. It prevents players gravitating toward a way of play that becomes stale or uninteresting to watch. Meta is meta, and it can be a very unfortunate thing to plague certain games, but it is also a great indicator of what to do to combat it. However, when it comes to BRs, it's a lot more difficult to balance a game because the variety of gear and gameplay prevents the idea of a meta over a short period of time. Unless there's something in the game outrageously unbalanced, it would be worth taking it out of the game till fixed or hotfixing it on the spot. But after all of this, one big piece of the puzzle to prevent BRs from entering the esports scene is the RNG machine operating in the background. Improvisation is definitely a good component for competitive games, but there is also a lot of randomness in BRs that can affect everyone differently, which could inflict the overall fairness of the game. Now, I do want to make the point clear that battle royales can indeed be competitive and fun, but maybe they can't exist in the same realm competitive games like League of Legends or Dota or Counter-Strike or Valorant, and even with sports, basketball and football or baseball. Esport battle royales wouldn't make too much sense unless they were to be treated similarly to horse racing or even Formula 1 and NASCAR. Competitions that hold many uncontrollable variables that make it difficult to not only compete in, but to follow as a fan, because victories for a lot of people are few and far between. But ultimately it's going to come down to the fan base. If one form of entertainment is enough to keep you coming back, then by all means keep at it. This is just a view on why it seems battle royales are uninteresting to watch or play, because they don't provide much in terms of long-lasting entertainment utility. However, if anyone has an opinion to join in or oppose to what I've said thus far, by all means, hit me up in the comments. Hey guys, how's it going? You may have noticed my hair's a little bit longer, got a beard going, shirt's changed. I started recording this video a couple months back and finally getting around to getting it done. So thank you guys for watching. I appreciate it. The reason for this video was to get more on the side of me with opinions and viewpoints that I wanted to challenge with you guys, in order to get more of an understanding of a particular topic and to maybe give you guys perspective on something you previously never thought of before. Making this video was actually pretty fun. It was a first for me, and the editing side of things is a bit more challenging than what I've been doing before, but overall I'm pretty happy with it. I would definitely consider making more of these down the road, so be sure to hit me up in the comments and let me know what you guys liked, what you didn't like, and we'll go from there. But with that, that's going to be the end of the video. If you guys enjoyed the video, I'd appreciate a like, as it does help out the channel and with that, YouTube's algorithm. If you like the content, be sure to subscribe and ring the notification to get notified when I go live at some point or when I upload another video. So yeah, thanks again, guys, and I hope to see you next time.